They said humans were weak. They said we were soft. They said we'd break the first time we faced real danger. The Krithax Dominion was about to learn why you should never underestimate a species that clawed its way to the top of its own death. World. The council chamber of the Galactic Union stretched across 300 meters of polished obsidian, its vaulted ceiling lost in artificial starlight. Ambassador Chenwei stood at the human delegation's platform, her hands clasped behind her back, watching as the assembled representatives of 47 species whispered and chittered and hummed their disapproval. The translation implant behind her ear struggled to keep up with the cacophony of languages, but the message was clear enough without words. The galaxy's established powers were not happy about humanity's application for advanced membership status. The species known as humans have been members of this union for only 12 standard cycles, announced Councillor Thax, his fur-eye stalks swiveling independently as he consulted the holographic data streaming before him. The Belvari diplomat's voice carried the wet, gurgling quality of his water-breathing species, each word bubbling up from the translation collar round his thick neck. In galactic terms, this is less than the blink of an eye. They have not earned the right to vote on Union military matters, nor to access the quantum displacement technologies they seek. Chen allowed herself a thin smile. They'd expected this. Earth's diplomatic corps had prepared her well for the institutional inertia that governed the Union's decision-making processes. What they hadn't prepared her for was the naked contempt she could see in the postural cues of dozens of alien delegates, the way the snake-like trellics coiled their bodies in defensive postures, the manner in which the crystalline Vharn dimmed their internal luminescence, the equivalent of turning one's back in a conversation. With respect, Councillor Chen began, her voice amplified across the chamber. Humanity has contributed significantly to Union science, culture, and commerce in our brief membership. We've shared our medical advances, our agricultural innovations, our artistic traditions. We've paid our dues and honored every treaty. We ask only for the same rights afforded to species who joined centuries ago, under far less stringent requirements. A sound rippled through the chamber, something between laughter and the hissing of steam. It came from the far platform where the Krithax delegation stood. Shen's jaw tightened as she recognized the hulking forms of the galaxy's most feared warrior species. Each Krithax stood nearly 3 meters tall, their exoskeletons gleaming like polished obsidian, their multiple limbs ending in razor-sharp talons that could slice through steel. They were apex predators from a heavy-gravity world, a species that had conquered 12 systems before being forcibly integrated into the Union. For centuries ago, even now, they served as the Union's primary military force, the teeth behind every diplomatic negotiation. War Master Crixithal stepped forward, his bulk making the platform groan. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked together in a sound that the translator rendered as cruel amusement. The humans speak of contributions, of medical advances and crops and pretty pictures. These are the accomplishments of prey species, not warriors. The Union's laws are clear. Only species who have proven themselves in combat may vote on military deployment. Only those who have faced the Void's true dangers may access weapons-grade technology. He turned his massive head toward Chen, and she fought the instinct to step back. Every human instinct screamed that she was looking at a predator, something that could tear her apart without effort. The Krithax had evolved hunting megafauna on a planet where the gravity was 3 times Earth's standard. They were stronger, faster, and more durable than humans could ever hope to be. And they knew it. Tell me, Ambassador Chen, Crixithal continued, his voice dripping with mockery. How many wars has your species won against galactic-class opponents? How many death worlds have you conquered? How many times have your warriors faced the true dangers of the Void and emerged victorious? He paused, letting the silence stretch. I believe the answer is 0. Your species has existed in a protected bubble since joining the Union. You have no idea what real warfare means at this scale. Chen felt the eyes of the entire chamber upon her. This was the crux of it, the real reason humanity's application had stalled. The galaxy didn't see humans as weak, exactly. They saw humans as untested, soft, a species that had grown up in a relatively calm region of space. never facing the horrors that lurked in the darker corners of the galaxy. They looked at Earth's history of warfare and saw primitive conflicts with chemical explosives and metal projectiles, nothing compared to the antimatter warheads and planet-cracking weapons that galactic powers wielded. War Master, Chen said carefully, humanity has fought countless wars throughout our history. We understand sacrifice, strategy, and survival, do you? Crixithal's laugh was a clicking, rattling thing. You understand fighting each other with toys on a single world. The Krithax have fought the Vex swarms, creatures that strip entire planets to bare rock. We have held the line against the machine intelligences of the Null Zone. We have earned our position through blood and pain and survival. What have humans done except arrive when the galaxy was already safe, protected by those of us who did the real fighting? Chen opened her mouth to respond, but another voice cut through the chamber. Perhaps it's time to let them prove themselves. Every head, stalk, sensor cluster, and optical organ turned toward the speaker. Prelate Jitter of the Ascendancy floated at his delegation's platform, his energy form pulsing with colors that the translator interpreted as thoughtful consideration. The Ascendancy were one of the galaxy's oldest races, post-biological entities who had transcended physical form millennia ago. Their word carried immense weight in the council. What do you suggest, Prelate? Councillor Thax asked. The Deadzone incursion, Jitter said simply, and the chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Shen's heart sank even as her training kept her face neutral. She knew of the Deadzone incursion. Every Union member did. It was a meat grinder, a nightmare scenario that had been ongoing for 3 standard years. A region of space where an unknown hostile force had established a foothold. Something that killed or corrupted everything the Union sent against it. Dozens of ships had vanished into the Deadzone, thousands of soldiers lost. Even the mighty Krithax had suffered devastating casualties there. You propose sending the humans into that hell? Crixithal asked, and for the first time, Chen heard something other than contempt in his voice. It might have been respect, or possibly anticipation. The Deadzone has destroyed 3 Krithax battle groups. Whatever is in their fights, like nothing we've encountered. Precisely, Jitter replied. If the humans wish to be treated as equals, let them face an equal challenge. Send a human military unit into the Deadzone. Give them one of the missions we've been unable to accomplish. Establish a forward operating base, and hold it for 30 standard days. If they succeed, humanity will have proven they deserve advanced membership status. If they fail, the prelate's colors shifted to something apologetic. Well, they will have learned an important lesson about their place in the galaxy. Chen's mind raced. This was a trap, obviously. The kind of impossible task meant to ensure humanity remained in its place for another few centuries. But it was also an opportunity. Earth's military had been champing at the bit for a chance to prove themselves, ever since first contact. And if they refused the challenge, they'd never be taken seriously again. I will need to consult with my government, Chen said slowly. Of course, Councillor Thax agreed. The Council will reconvene in 7 standard days to hear humanity's response. 3 days later, Chen stood in the secure communication room of Earth's embassy station, watching as President Okafor's face filled the holographic display. Behind the President, she could see Fleet Admiral Rodriguez and General Zhao. Their expressions grim. It's a suicide mission, Rodriguez said bluntly. We've analyzed what limited data the Union has released about the Deadzone incursions. Whatever's in there has wiped out forces that are technologically superior to us. In every measurable way. The Krithax alone have weaponry that makes our best ships look like rowboats against battleships. And yet, General Zhao interjected, it's also an opportunity. If we refuse, we'll never be taken seriously. We'll be the galaxy's junior partners forever, dependent on others for protection and access to advanced technology. But if we succeed, he trailed off, but Chen could fill in the blank. If they succeeded, everything would change. President Okafor leaned back in her chair. Ambassador Chen, you've spent more time with these species than anyone. What's your read on this situation? Chen considered her words carefully. They expect us to fail, Madam President. The Krithax see this as a way to put us in our place, to prove that humans are just another soft species that can't compete at the galactic level. But there's something else. I've been reviewing the Union's combat doctrines, studying how they fight. They're powerful, yes, but they're also predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and superior technology. They fight the way apex predators fight, head-on, assuming their natural advantages will carry the day. And humans don't fight that way, Zhao said, nodding slowly. No, sir, we don't. We're ambush predators, pack hunters. We're a species that survive not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being the smartest and most adaptable. We invented warfare as a science because we had to. On Earth, we were never the apex predator. We competed with everything from saber-toothed cats to other human tribes. We learned to use terrain, deception, endurance, and tools to overcome opponents that were physically superior. Rodriguez pulled up a holographic star chart. I've been looking at the Deadzone. It's a region roughly 15 light-years across, filled with dense asteroid fields, nebular clouds, and spatial anomalies. Terrible terrain for conventional fleet actions. You can't bring overwhelming force to bear because you can't see or maneuver effectively. It's an environment that neutralizes most of the advantages the Krithaks and other species rely on. But it's perfect for guerrilla warfare, Zhao added, for small unit tactics, ambush attacks, and asymmetric fighting. It's the kind of environment where a smart, adaptable force can punch way above its weight. President Okafor was quiet for a long moment. You're telling me we actually have a chance? I'm telling you we have the kind of chance we've always had, Chen replied. The underdog's chance. The chance that comes from being underestimated and using that to our advantage. Then let's talk about who we send. The president said that the answer came from an unexpected source. Major Sarah Reeves had been sitting quietly in the corner of the virtual conference room, her presence barely noted by the senior officials. Now she cleared her throat. Madam President, if I may. Chen had met Reeves once before, during a tour of Earth's new space marine facilities. The Major was a compact woman with dark skin, sharp eyes, and a reputation for unconventional thinking. She'd been one of the first humans to train with Union forces, and had come back with detailed reports about their strengths and weaknesses. Major Reeves, President Okafor acknowledged. You have something to contribute. Permission to lead the mission, ma'am. With a specially selected unit of volunteers, Reeves leaned forward, her intensity filling the holographic space. I've been studying everything we know about the Deadzone, and the forces the Union has sent against it. They keep making the same mistake, trying to fight like they're in open space, with clear lines of engagement. But the Deadzone isn't open space. It's urban warfare in 3 dimensions. It's jungle fighting where the jungle is made of rock and gas and radiation. And that's an environment where humans excel. Explain, General Zhao commanded. The Krithaks are shock troops. They're bred for frontal assaults and overwhelming violence. The Trellix are ambush predators, but they're solitary hunters who don't coordinate well in large groups. The Vharn are living computers who rely on perfect information, which they can't get in the Deadzone's sensor jamming environment. Every species the Union has sent in there has been trying to impose their natural fighting style on an environment that doesn't suit them. Reeves pulled up her own tactical display. But humans, we're adaptable. We spent thousands of years fighting in every environment Earth had to offer. Forests, deserts, oceans, mountains, cities. We learned to work as coordinated teams, to communicate under fire, to improvise when plans fell apart. We developed special forces doctrines specifically for operating in hostile territory. Without support, the Deadzone is just another hostile environment, and humans are experts at learning new environments fast. Admiral Rodriguez looked skeptical. You're talking about sending a single unit against a threat that's destroyed entire battle groups. How many soldiers are we talking about? 200, Reeves said without hesitation. All volunteers, all special forces trained, experts in zero-G combat, environmental survival, and asymmetric warfare. We go in light and fast. We use the environment instead of fighting against it. And we establish a base in the last place the enemy would expect, right in the middle of the thickest, most dangerous part of the Deadzone. That's insane, Rodriguez muttered. That's why it might work. Chen countered. The enemy, whatever it is, has been facing conventional military forces using conventional tactics. They've learned to counter Union strategies. but they've never faced humans before. They don't know how we think, how we fight, or what we're capable of. We'll have the element of surprise. President Okafor studied Reeves through the holographic display. Major, you understand that this mission has a high probability of failure? That you and everyone you take might not come back? Yes, ma'am. But I also understand that sometimes you have to roll the dice. And I'd rather die trying to prove we belong in this galaxy than live as second-class citizens. For the next 1,000 years, the silence stretched out, heavy with the weight of the decision. Finally, President Okafor nodded. You have your authorization, Major. Pick your team. Show the galaxy what humans can do. For days later, Chen stood in the council chamber again. Facing the assembled representatives, the United Earth government accepts the challenge, she announced. We will send a military unit into the Deadzone to establish and hold a forward operating base for 30 standard days. Crixathal's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval or anticipation of entertainment. A brave decision, Ambassador. Foolish, but brave. The Council will provide transport to the Deadzone's edge and monitoring satellites to verify your success or failure. But make no mistake, once your warriors enter that space, they will be entirely on their own. No reinforcements, no rescue missions. The Deadzone's nature makes such operations impossible. Your soldiers will succeed or die trying. We understand the terms, Chen replied calmly. Then we shall see, Prelate Jinter said, his energy form pulsing with colors that might have been sadness or anticipation. Whether humanity is truly ready to stand among the galaxy's warriors, or if you are simply another species that must learn its limitations the hard way. 2 weeks later, the UESS Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Deadzone. Major Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge next to Captain Morrison, watching as the view screen filled with a vision of chaos. The Deadzone wasn't empty space, it was a roiling mass of asteroid fields, dense dust clouds, and strange energy phenomena that made sensors flicker and fail. Lightning arced between chunks of rock the size of mountains. Gravity wells twisted and pulled in unpredictable patterns. And somewhere in that maelstrom, something was waiting. It's beautiful in a terrifying sort of way. Morrison observed. Beautiful is one word for it, Reeves replied. Behind her, she could hear her team making final equipment checks. 200 of Earth's finest warriors, volunteers all, each one aware that they were about to write a new chapter in human history, or become a footnote in its failures. Lieutenant Jackson approached, his dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, his combat exosuit already sealed except for the helmet. All teams ready, Major. Insertion pods are loaded and greenlit. We're just waiting on your word. Reeves turned to face her assembled troops. They filled the Defiance's deployment bay, a sea of determined faces from every corner of Earth. She'd chosen them carefully, not just for their combat skills, but for their adaptability, their creativity, their ability to work together under impossible circumstances. There were former Special Forces operators from a dozen nations, zero-G combat specialists, survival experts, engineers, medics, and intelligence analysts. Each one had been briefed on the mission's true nature, not just to establish a base, but to fundamentally change how humanity was perceived by the galaxy. Listen up, Reeves called out, her voice carrying across the bay. In about 30 minutes, we're going to drop into hell. Everything you've heard about the Deadzone is probably true. It's dangerous, it's unknown, and it's already killed thousands of soldiers from species that are supposed to be better than us. She paused, letting that sink in. But here's what they don't understand. Humans don't win by being better. We win by being tougher, smarter, and too stubborn to know when we should quit. A ripple of grim laughter ran through the troops. The galaxy thinks we're soft. They think we're prey animals playing at being warriors. They're about to learn that the most dangerous predator isn't always the biggest or strongest. Sometimes it's the one that's smart enough to use everything around it as a weapon, adaptable enough to thrive in any environment, and mean enough to never stop fighting. We're going to show them what humans do when we're backed into a corner. We're going to show them why you don't underestimate a species from a death world. The troops erupted in a war cry that had been echoing across Earth for millennia, a sound of defiance and determination that no alien species had ever heard before. Reeves pulled on her own helmet, feeling it seal with a soft hiss. All teams mount up. We're going hunting. The insertion pods were cramped affairs, barely large enough for 3 soldiers and their equipment. Reeves strapped into the lead pod with Jackson and Sergeant Park, a demolitions expert who'd earned her reputation in the asteroid mining conflicts of the Belt Wars. Through the pod's small viewport, she watched as the Deadzone grew larger and more menacing. 30 seconds to launch. Morrison's voice crackled over the comm. Good hunting, Major. Make Earth proud. Roger that, Defiance. We'll see you in 30 days. The countdown reached 0, and the universe turned into violence. The pod's rockets fired, hurling them away from the Defiance and into the storm. Gravity twisted and pulled in directions that made Reeves's inner ear scream in confusion. Her heads-up display flickered and died as the Deadzone's interference scrambled their electronics. They were flying blind through a maelstrom, trusting their initial trajectory and the skill of the pod's basic systems to get them where they needed to go. Something massive loomed out of the darkness, an asteroid the size of a city. The pod's proximity alerts shrieked. Park slammed her fist on the manual override, firing attitude thrusters that weren't dependent on computer guidance. The pod spun, its hull scraping against rock with a sound like a scream. Then they were past, tumbling through space, and Reeves caught a glimpse of other pods scattered across the void, each one following the same desperate insertion path. Still with me? She called over the local comm. Affirmative, Jackson replied, though his voice was strained. I'm reading 19 other pods on local sensors. That's everyone. We didn't lose anyone to the insertion. First hurdle cleared, Park added. Now we just have to survive everything else. The pod shuddered as it began its final approach. Automated systems bringing them down toward a massive asteroid that their pre-mission surveys had identified as defensible. It was roughly cubic, 5 kilometers on a side, riddled with caves and tunnels that could provide protection and concealment. The perfect place to establish a base that no one would expect humans to occupy. They hit hard, the pod's crash webbing straining as magnetic clamps locked them to the asteroid's surface. Reeves popped the hatch and pulled herself out into the vacuum, her suit's systems compensating for the minimal gravity. Around her, other pods were landing, disgorging soldiers who immediately began securing the perimeter. All teams, sound off, Reeves ordered. One by one, the squad leaders reported in. Everyone had made it. 200 humans stood on a rock in the middle of the most dangerous region of space, in the known galaxy, surrounded by something that had destroyed everything the Union had sent against it. Begin establishing the base, Reeves commanded. Engineering teams, I want those caves mapped and fortified within 6 hours. Sensor teams, set up passive monitoring arrays. Combat teams, establish a defensive perimeter. Move like we've done this 1,000 times before, because we have. The only difference is the scenery. As her troops dispersed to their assigned tasks, Reeves took a moment to look up at the chaos surrounding them. Lightning arced between asteroids. Strange energy pulses lit up the darkness. And somewhere out there, something was watching. Something that had killed thousands of alien soldiers. She smiled grimly behind her helmet. Come on then, she whispered to the darkness. Let's see how you do against humans. 27 hours into the mission, they made first contact. Reeves was in the command center, a cave they'd pressurized and filled with equipment, when Corporal Zhang's voice crackled over the comm. Major, we've got movement. Section 7, Upper Ridge. Multiple contacts, moving fast, visual. Reeves asked, already moving toward the armory. Negative. Too much interference. But they're big, ma'am. And there's a lot of them. All combat teams, full alert. Engineering, seal those blast doors. Sensor teams, give me everything you can. Reeves grabbed her rifle, checked the charge, and headed for the surface. Around her, the base transformed from a construction site to a fortress in seconds. Soldiers taking up defensive positions with the practiced ease of professionals who'd trained for exactly this scenario. She reached the surface just as the enemy came into view, and for a moment, her breath caught in her throat. They looked like nightmares made solid, creatures of shifting darkness and twisted metal, each one unique yet clearly part of a coordinated force. Some walked on legs, some flew on impossible wings. Some seemed to flow across the asteroid's surface like liquid death. There had to be at least 50 of them, moving with a grace that spoke of perfect coordination. "Hold fire," Reeves ordered. "Let them get close. Wait for my mark." The creatures advanced, clearly expecting easy prey. They'd probably destroyed dozens of Union positions using these same tactics: overwhelming force, terrifying appearance, relentless assault. But they'd never faced humans before. Now, Reeves screamed. The asteroid exploded with light and violence. Humans didn't just shoot, they unleashed hell. Claymore mines detonated, filling the space with high-velocity shrapnel. Railgun emplacements opened fire, their projectiles punching through the enemy with kinetic force that sent bodies tumbling into space. Soldiers fired from concealed positions, their weapons zeroed and coordinated, creating overlapping fields of fire that left no avenue of approach uncovered. The creatures recoiled, clearly shocked. They'd expected resistance, but not this level of organized violence. They'd expected soldiers who would try to match them in direct combat, not warriors who'd turn the entire battlefield into a weapon. Reeves dove behind cover as one of the creatures lunged at her position, its clawed appendages trailing energy that made her suit's radiation alarms scream. She rolled, came up firing, and put 3 rounds into what she hoped was its center mass. The creature shuddered and fell, and she was already moving to the next target. Around her, her troops were performing like the professionals they were. Jackson led a counterattack on the left flank, using the terrain to funnel the enemy into kill zones. Park detonated charges that collapsed a tunnel, burying a dozen creatures under tons of rock. The medics moved between positions, treating wounded and keeping everyone in the fight. "Major," Jean called over the comm. "They're retreating." Reeves looked up to see the creatures pulling back, dragging their dead and wounded with them. They'd lost nearly a third of their force, while the humans had suffered only minor casualties, a few wounded, none dead. The enemy had expected an easy victory and instead walked into a buzzsaw. "Hold positions," Reeves ordered. "They'll be back, and next time they'll be smarter." But as she watched the creatures disappear into the darkness of the Deadzone, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The galaxy's most dangerous threat had just learned its first lesson about humanity. We don't fight fair, we fight to win. And when we're defending our ground, we're the most dangerous thing in the universe. The real war was just beginning, and the Deadzone was about to learn why you never, ever underestimate a species that evolved by fighting everything on a death world and winning. Back in the council chamber, thousands of light years away, Ambassador Chen watched the monitoring satellites feed with Count Silurthax and several other delegates. The footage was grainy, corrupted by the Deadzone's interference, but it showed enough: humans standing their ground against an enemy that had destroyed Krithak's battle groups. "Interesting," Thax bubbled quietly. "Most interesting indeed." Chen smiled. "We're just getting started." Day 3 brought a lesson in humility. The creatures returned with a different strategy, and it was clear they'd been watching, learning, analyzing. This time they didn't charge in a coordinated mass. Instead, they came in small groups from multiple directions, probing defenses, testing responses, forcing the humans to spread thin across their defensive perimeter. When Jackson's squad moved to reinforce the eastern approach, the enemy hit them hard from the north. When Park's demolition team tried to set new charges, snipers of creatures made of living darkness, could be called snipers, picked them off from impossible distances. Reeves watched from the command center as her casualty list grew. 3 dead, 12 wounded seriously enough to be pulled from combat rotation. The enemy had learned from their first encounter and adapted their tactics faster than any opponent she'd ever faced. They were testing the humans, finding weaknesses, applying pressure at exactly the right points to maximize damage while minimizing their own losses. "They're smart," Lieutenant Jackson said, his face appearing on her display from his position on the surface. His suit showed impact damage, and there was blood on his visor from a wound somewhere on his scalp. "Scary smart. They're fighting like we fight, using terrain, coordinating fire, adapting to our responses in real time. They've been fighting Union forces for 3 years. Reeves replied. "They've had plenty of time to learn conventional tactics, but they've only been fighting us for 3 days. We need to show them something they haven't seen before." What did you have in mind, Major? Reeves pulled up a three-dimensional map of the surrounding asteroid field. The enemy keeps coming from the same general direction, which means they have a staging area somewhere out there. We've been playing defense because that's what they expect, what every Union force has done. Dig in, hold position, wait for relief that never comes. But humans didn't become apex predators by sitting in caves. Jackson's eyes widened as he realized what she was suggesting. You want to take the fight to them. I want to go hunting. We leave a skeleton crew to defend the base, take our best infiltration specialists, and we find out where these things are coming from. We learn what they are, how they think, what makes them tick, and then we figure out how to kill them more efficiently. Reeves leaned forward, her voice hard. The Union tried to fight this enemy with conventional warfare and failed. Time to show them how humans hunt. 6 hours later, Reeves led a team of 40 soldiers into the darkness of the Deadzone, leaving Jackson in command of the base's defense. They moved through the asteroid field like ghosts, using minimal thruster burns, relying on manual navigation and the instincts of soldiers who'd trained for exactly this kind of operation. Sergeant Park had rigged their suits with sensor-absorbing materials that weren't dependent on advanced technology, just basic physics and chemistry that made them harder to detect against the already chaotic background of the Deadzone. Corporal Zhang led the way, her gift for navigation in three-dimensional space proving invaluable. She guided them through narrow passages between tumbling rocks, around gravity wells that could have torn them apart, through clouds of ionized gas that scrambled any electronic tracking. They moved in silence, communicating only through hand signals transmitted via line-of-sight laser comm, leaving no electronic signature that might give them away. 2 hours into the hunt, they found it. The enemy base, if it could be called, that was built into a massive asteroid fragment that must have been part of a shattered planet. The structure was organic and mechanical at the same time, like a fusion of living tissue and advanced technology. Creatures moved in and out, carrying materials, tending to wounded, organizing themselves with a precision that spoke of hive mind coordination or near-perfect communication. But what caught Reeves's attention wasn't the base itself. It was what lay at its center, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with sickly green light, each pulse sending out waves of energy that made her suit's radiation detectors scream in silent alarm. Around the crystal, dozens of creatures lay motionless, their bodies connected to it by threads of light that seemed to flow with information. Is that what I think it is? Park whispered over the tight beam comm. A command nexus, Reeves confirmed. She'd seen similar structures in the intelligence briefings about other hostile forces the Union had faced. They're connected to it, sharing information, coordinating their actions. That's how they adapt so fast. They're not individual soldiers learning from experience. They're all part of a collective intelligence that processes every encounter and updates its tactics in real time. So if we destroy it, Zhang began, we might cut off their ability to coordinate, at least temporarily. But look at the defenses. Reeves highlighted the tactical overlay on their shared display. The crystal was surrounded by dozens of creatures, protected by overlapping fields of fire, accessible only through narrow approaches that were obvious kill zones. A frontal assault would be suicide. We'd never make it halfway before they overwhelmed us. Then we don't go frontal, Park said. And Reeves could hear the smile in her voice. Major, remember the asteroid mining operation on Series 3? When the strikers barricaded themselves in the deep tunnels, and we had to smoke them out. Reeves did remember. It had been early in her career, a hostage situation that had gone from bad to worse when armed miners had taken over a processing facility. The facility had been designed to be defensible, with clear lines of sight and limited access points, so they hadn't tried to storm it. Instead, they'd used the asteroid itself as a weapon. You think we can trigger a collapse? Reeves said slowly. Look at the structure, Park replied, sending tactical data across the tight beam. This fragment has massive stress fractures running through it, probably from whatever event shattered the original planet. The enemy built their base along these natural caves and tunnels without reinforcing them. If we place charges at the right stress points, we can bring down half this rock on top of their command center. That's a lot of demolition work in hostile territory, Lieutenant Morrison pointed out. He'd volunteered for the mission despite being the Defiance's captain. Too invested in humanity's success to stay behind. We'd need at least 2 hours to place charges properly, and that's if everything goes perfectly. The moment they detect us, we're done. So we make sure they don't detect us, Reeves said. Zhang, can you map us a route through these tunnels that avoids their patrol patterns? Give me 10 minutes. While Zhang worked, Reeves studied the enemy base, watching their movements, analyzing their behavior. The creatures moved with purpose, but also with a kind of arrogance. The confidence of a force that had destroyed everything the galaxy had thrown at them. They weren't expecting to be hunted in their own territory. That overconfidence would be their downfall. Route mapped, Zhang announced. It's tight, and we'll have to move slow. But I can get us to all for primary stress points without crossing any patrol routes. Probably, Reeves repeated dryly. Well, that's better odds than we usually work with. Park, take your demo team and get to work. Morrison, you're with me. We'll establish overwatch positions and cover your withdrawal. Everyone else, spread out and be ready to extract at a moment's notice. Once those charges blow, this whole sector is going to light up like a Christmas tree. They moved like shadows through the tunnels, each soldier acutely aware that detection meant death. Park's demolition team worked with the practiced efficiency of artists, placing shaped charges at stress points that would direct the explosive force inward, collapsing the tunnels and caves in a cascading failure that would bury the command. Nexus under thousands of tons of rock. Reeves and Morrison set up position in a narrow shaft that overlooked the main approach to the crystalline structure. Through her scope, she could see the creatures in detail for the first time. They were beautiful in a terrible way, their bodies shifting and reforming, adapting to their environment in real time. Some had wings that looked like they were made of solidified shadow. Others had limbs that ended in weapons that grew from their own flesh. They were the ultimate adaptive organism, able to reshape themselves to meet any threat. No wonder the Union couldn't beat them, Morrison whispered. They're like nothing I've ever seen. Part organic, part machine, part something else entirely. They bleed though, Reeves replied. We proved that in the first battle. Doesn't matter how scary they look or how fast they adapt. Put enough holes in anything and it stops working. Charges set. Park's voice crackled over the tight beam. Ready to extract. Pull back to rally point Beta, Reeves ordered. Morrison and I will blow the charges once everyone's clear. The withdrawal was agonizingly slow. Every sound seemed magnified in Reeves's ears. Every shadow could be an enemy patrol. They passed within meters of creatures that could have torn them apart, and only the sensor-dampening modifications on their suits kept them hidden. Zhang guided them through the maze of tunnels with the confidence of someone who could see in 3 dimensions, finding paths that shouldn't have existed but did. 30 minutes later, the entire team was clear of the enemy base, positioned behind cover at a safe distance. Reeves checked her tactical display one last time, confirming that everyone was accounted for. Park, you have control, she said. Roger that, Major. Initiating countdown. Charges blow in 10, 9, 8. The universe held its breath. 3, 2, 1. Execute. The asteroid fragment didn't explode so much as it seemed to sigh, as if giving up on the effort of holding itself together. The charges detonated in a carefully orchestrated sequence, each one triggering stress fractures that led to larger collapses, which triggered avalanches of rock and ice and metal. Within seconds, half the enemy base simply ceased to exist, buried under a mountain of debris. The crystalline command Nexus shattered, its green light flickering and dying as thousands of tons of rock crushed it into dust. The creatures that survived the initial collapse seemed to go mad. They scattered in all directions, their movements suddenly uncoordinated, chaotic. Some attacked each other, others fled into the depths of the Deadzone. The hive mind that had given them their tactical advantage was gone, and what remained were individual organisms acting on instinct rather than coordinated intelligence. Holy hell, Morrison breathed. We just decapitated their entire command structure. We cut off one head, Reeves corrected. There might be others, but for now, we've evened the odds. Let's get back to base before they figure out what happened. The journey back took 3 hours. And by the time they reached their fortified position, the tactical situation had transformed. The creatures were still attacking, but their assaults were disorganized, poorly coordinated. Jackson's defense teams were able to repel them with minimal casualties, picking off enemies that no longer moved with their previous lethal efficiency. "Welcome back, Major," Jackson greeted her as she cycled through the airlock. "I don't know what you did out there, but the enemy's been acting drunk for the past hour. We've eliminated over 60 hostiles with only 2 wounded on our side." Reeves pulled off her helmet and allowed herself a tired smile. "We killed their brain. Now we just have to clean up the body over the next 10 days. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. Without their command nexus to coordinate their attacks, the creatures became predictable, vulnerable. Reeves's teams went on the offensive, conducting raids throughout the sector, eliminating enemy positions, gathering intelligence about the nature of their opponent. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The creatures weren't a natural species at all. They were weapons, created by an ancient civilization as a defense system for their territory. Millions of years ago, they'd been programmed to destroy any intruders and then adapt to counter whatever tactics those intruders used. They'd wiped out their creators when the civilization had tried to deactivate them, and they'd been lurking in this region of space ever since, destroying everything that entered their domain. The Union's forces had fought them conventionally, and the creatures had adapted to conventional warfare, becoming more and more efficient at destroying ships and soldiers that followed predictable patterns. But humans didn't fight conventionally. Humans improvised, adapted, and used tactics that no one had seen before, because humans had spent millennia fighting each other and learning to be unpredictable. "We're not winning because we're better warriors," Reeves explained to her assembled troops on day 15. "We're winning because we're different warriors." Every other species in the galaxy evolved as either apex predators or prey animals. They have instincts, patterns, natural behaviors that are hard-coded into their biology. But humans, we're generalists. We can be predators or prey, aggressive or defensive, patient or impulsive. We adapt our behavior to fit the situation instead of trying to make the situation fit our behavior. That's our advantage, and that's what's going to win this war. By day 20, the humans had cleared a sphere of space 50 kilometers in diameter around their base. The creatures still probed their defenses occasionally, but the attacks were half-hearted, almost tentative. The enemy was learning that humans were the more dangerous predator in this environment, but Reeves knew better than to become complacent. On day 22, her worst fears were confirmed. "Major, you need to see this," Jean called from the sensor station. When Reeves arrived, the corporal pulled up long-range scanner data. "I've been monitoring energy signatures throughout the Deadzone, tracking movement patterns. For the past 2 days, I've been seeing massive power buildups in 3 separate locations, each one approximately 100 kilometers from our position. More command Nexuses," Reeves said, feeling ice form in her stomach, bigger ones, and they're coordinating their energy signatures, sensing up like they're planning something. "Major, I think they're about to hit us with everything they have." Reeves studied the data, her tactical mind already running through scenarios. 3 command Nexuses meant 3 separate hive minds, all of them likely sharing information about the humans, all of them coordinating for a final assault designed to overwhelm the base's defenses. The creatures had lost the initial engagements, but they were learning. They were about to apply every lesson they'd absorbed about human warfare. "How long until they're ready?" she asked. "Best estimate? 36 hours. Then we have 36 hours to do the impossible." Reeves turned to face her command staff. "Jackson, I need a detailed inventory of every weapon, every charge, every piece of equipment we have. Morrison, work with Park to identify every defensive position we can fortify between here and those Nexus locations. Zhang, I want continuous monitoring of those power signatures. The second they start moving, I want to know about it." "What are you planning, Major?" Jackson asked. "The Union tried to hold defensive positions against these things and failed. We tried it too, and we've done better than anyone expected. But we can't hold against a coordinated assault from 3 directions with unlimited reinforcements. So we're going to do what humans have always done when we can't win a defensive battle. She pulled up a tactical display showing their base and the 3 enemy Nexus locations. We're going to attack. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. They would divide their forces into 3 strike teams, each one targeting a different command Nexus. They would hit all 3 simultaneously, denying the enemy the ability to reinforce any single position. And they would do it with less than 200 soldiers against an enemy that numbered in the thousands. We'll be abandoning the base, Morrison pointed out. If we commit everyone to the assault, there's no one left to defend our position here. The base doesn't matter, Reeves replied. The mission was to establish and hold a forward operating position for 30 days. We've got 8 days left, and we've already proven we can hold this rock against anything they throw at us. But if we want to truly win, if we want to show the galaxy what humans can do, we need to eliminate the threat entirely. We need to clear the dead zone. That's not what the Council asked us to do, Jackson said carefully. No, it's not. They asked us to survive. But humans don't just survive. We thrive. We overcome. We turn impossible situations into victories. Reeves looked at each of her officers in turn. This enemy has terrorized the galaxy for 3 years. They've destroyed Union battle groups, killed thousands of soldiers, and made this region of space a no-go zone. We have the opportunity to end that threat permanently, to not just prove that humans deserve a seat at the big table, but to prove that we belong at the head of that table. A long silence filled the command center. Finally, Park spoke up. I'm in. Let's kill these things and go home as heroes instead of survivors. One by one, the other officers nodded their agreement. Jackson was the last, but when he spoke, his voice was firm. All right, Major, let's show the galaxy how Earth's children fight. They spent the next 30 hours preparing. Each strike team was composed of specialized personnel, infiltration experts, demolition specialists, heavy weapons operators, and medics. They stripped the base of everything useful, converting their defensive position into an armory that would supply the assault. Every soldier received extra ammunition, backup equipment, and detailed briefings on their specific targets. Reeves took personal command of Alpha Team, targeting the largest and most heavily defended Nexus. Jackson led Bravo Team, while Morrison commanded Charlie Team. Park, Zhang, and other key personnel were distributed across the teams to ensure each one had the expertise needed to complete their mission. Remember, Reeves told her troops during the final briefing, these things adapt to conventional tactics, so we're going to use unconventional warfare. We're going to use every dirty trick humanity ever invented. We're going to fight mean, fight smart, and fight like our lives depend on it because they do. These creatures think they've figured us out. They think they know how humans fight now. We're about to teach them that humans always have one more trick up their sleeves. The assault began at 0300 hours, synchronized across all 3 teams. Alpha Team approached their target through a narrow canyon between asteroids, using demolition charges to create a false entry point that drew the enemy's attention. While the real assault force came in from an unexpected angle, the creatures responded exactly as predicted, concentrating their forces at the obvious threat while leaving their flanks exposed. Reeves led her team through a gap in the defenses, her rifle speaking in short, controlled bursts that dropped enemies before they could raise the alarm. They moved like a surgical strike team, each soldier knowing their role, executing their part of the plan with precision born from countless hours of training. When they reached the command Nexus, Park's demo team went to work with the efficiency of artists, placing charges that would destroy the crystalline structure and collapse the cavern it occupied. Charges set, Park reported. We're good to go. But as they began their withdrawal, the enemy finally realized what was happening. Creatures poured from side tunnels, cutting off their escape route. The air filled with energy weapons and projectiles, and Reeves's tactical display lit up with casualty indicators. Alpha Team, we are engaged heavy. She called over the command net. Bravo, Charlie, status? Charlie Team encountering heavy resistance. Morrison's voice crackled back. We're pinned down at the Nexus. Going to have trouble extracting. Bravo Team has successfully destroyed our target. Jackson reported. En route to support Charlie. Reeves made a split-second decision. Bravo, divert to Alpha's position. Charlie, hold your ground and blow your Nexus on my mark. All teams, prepare for simultaneous detonation. They fought like cornered wolves, each soldier holding their ground, buying time for Park to complete her preparations. Reeves emptied magazine after magazine, her rifle overheating from sustained fire. Around her, her team was taking casualties, not deaths yet, but injuries that would require immediate medical attention once they were clear. A creature lunged at her from the shadows, its claws extended, moving faster than anything its size should be able to move. She didn't have time to bring her rifle round, so she did something the creature didn't expect. She dropped the weapon entirely and drew the combat knife strapped to her thigh, a simple piece of sharpened steel that humanity had been using to kill things for thousands of years. The blade bit deep into what passed for the creature's throat, and it recoiled in surprise. Reeves twisted the knife and pushed off from the dying enemy, using its body as leverage to reach cover. Her hands found her rifle again, and she was back in the fight without missing a beat. All charges ready. Park shouted, "We need to extract now." All teams, pull back to minimum safe distance, Reeves ordered. 30 seconds, and then we blow everything. The withdrawal was chaos. Soldiers covered each other's retreat, laying down suppressing fire, using grenades and shaped charges to create barriers between themselves and the pursuing enemy. Jackson's team arrived and immediately joined the fight, their fresh ammunition and reinforced numbers turning the tide just enough to get Alpha Team clear. Meanwhile, Morrison's team fought alone at the third Nexus, surrounded but holding their ground through sheer determination and superior tactics. They were taking heavy casualties, but every soldier knew that retreating now would doom the entire mission. Charlie team ready, Morrison reported, and Reeves could hear the exhaustion in his voice. We're down to 50% effective strength, but the charges are set. All teams confirm clear. Reeves ordered, checking her tactical display. Everyone was at minimum safe distance except Charlie team, who were still too close to their target. Morrison, you need to get your people farther back. Negative, Major, we're surrounded. If we try to retreat, they'll overrun us before we can detonate. We're going to blow the charges from here and trust our suits to protect us. Morrison, it's the only way, Major. For Earth, for humanity. On your mark. Reeves felt her throat tighten. She'd led soldiers into danger before, had lost people under her command, but ordering them to stay in a position she knew would cause casualties was something different. But Morrison was right. If Charlie team retreated now, the enemy would either stop them or disarm the charges. The entire plan would collapse, and they'd all die anyway. Understood, she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. All teams detonate on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Deadzone erupted in light and violence. 3 command nexuses shattered simultaneously, each one triggering a cascade of destruction that tore through the enemy's infrastructure. The crystalline structures exploded with energy releases that made nearby stars look dim by comparison. Thousands of creatures died instantly, crushed or incinerated or simply torn apart by the forces unleashed. When the light faded and Reeves' sensors cleared, the tactical display told the story. Alpha and Bravo teams had suffered casualties, but remained intact. Charlie team's indicators were a mix of yellow, red, and ominous gray. Morrison's voice came over the comm, weak but alive. Charlie team reporting. We survived, barely. 23 effectives remaining. Multiple critical injuries. We need immediate medevac. Bravo team moving to Charlie's position, Jackson reported. Alpha, can you secure the area? Roger that, Reeves confirmed, even as she watched her sensors. The enemy presence throughout the sector was collapsing. Without their command nexuses, the creatures were reverting to basic defensive behaviors, fleeing or shutting down entirely. They'd done it, against impossible odds, with casualties that would haunt her for the rest of her life. They'd done it. The next 6 days were a blur of consolidation and recovery. They established a proper medical facility in the ruins of one of the enemy bases, treating the wounded with the limited supplies they had. They fortified their original base position. More out of habit than necessity, the enemy was in full retreat, their ability to coordinate shattered beyond repair. On day 28, A Union observation vessel entered the Deadzone's edge, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is the Union survey ship Harmony to any surviving human forces. We are here to verify mission completion and provide emergency extraction if needed. Please respond. Reeves stood in the command center, looking at the tactical display that showed a clear sphere of space, 100 kilometers in diameter, completely free of hostile presence. Around her, the survivors of her company, 162 soldiers out of the original 100, waited for her response. She keyed the transmitter. Harmony, this is Major Sarah Reeves, United Earth Space Marines. Mission accomplished. Forward operating base established and held for the required duration. Additionally, we have successfully neutralized the hostile threat in this sector. The dead zone is clear. There was a long pause on the other end of the transmission. Major Reeves, please repeat your last statement. Did you say the dead zone is clear? Affirmative, Harmony. We identified the enemy command and control infrastructure and systematically eliminated it. Remaining hostiles have retreated deeper into the sector or ceased operations. We estimate 97% reduction in hostile presence throughout the operational area. Another pause. Longer this time, Major. The Union has been fighting this threat for 3 years with minimal success. You're telling me that a single human unit cleared the dead zone in less than 30 days? Reeves allowed herself a smile. Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm telling you. 3 days later, Major Sarah Reeves stood in the council chamber of the Galactic Union for the first time. Her dress uniform was crisp despite the journey, but her face still bore the marks of combat, a healing scar above her left eye, bruises that hadn't quite faded. Around her stood the survivors of her company, each one a living testament to humanity's capability. The chamber was silent as Councillor Thax reviewed the mission data, his eye stalks processing information that clearly challenged his understanding of warfare. Ambassador Chen stood at the human delegation's platform, her face carefully neutral. But Reeves could see the pride in her eyes. The data is extraordinary, Thax finally said. In 28 standard days, with only 200 soldiers, humanity accomplished what the Union's combined military forces could not achieve in 3 years. You eliminated a threat that cost us thousands of lives and billions in resources. You cleared a region of space that we had written off as permanently compromised. War Master Crixethal stepped forward, and for the first time since Reeves had seen him in the recorded council sessions, the massive Crithex's posture held something that looked like respect. Major Reeves, I studied your tactics. You used strategies that no other species has employed in modern galactic warfare. Guerrilla operations, asymmetric warfare, psychological manipulation of the enemy. You fought like something ancient and terrifying. We fought like humans, War Master. Reeves replied calmly. We fought the way our species has always fought, smart, adaptable, and with absolute determination to survive and win. The Union's forces tried to match the enemy's strength with superior strength. We matched the enemy's adaptability with superior adaptability. We didn't fight the war they expected. We fought the war we knew we could win. Prelate Jitter's energy form pulsed with colors that the translator interpreted as profound. Respect. The galaxy owes humanity a debt. We had accepted the dead zone as an unsolvable problem, a permanent threat on our borders. You solved it in a month. With all due respect, Prelate, Reeves said, we didn't solve it alone. We used Union equipment, Union intelligence, and Union support infrastructure. We just applied human tactics to a galactic problem. That's what we've been trying to tell you. Humanity doesn't want to replace the Union's existing forces. We want to complement them. Every species has strengths. The Crithaks are incredible shock troops. The Trellics are superb hunters. The Vharn are tactical geniuses. Humans bring something different, the ability to adapt to any situation, to think outside established parameters, to win fights we have no business winning. She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives of 47 species. Earth spent millions of years as a death world, a planet where everything was trying to kill everything else. Humans survived not by being the strongest, fastest, or toughest, but by being the most adaptable, the most creative, and the most stubborn. We learned to use tools, to work in teams, to plan and strategize and never give up no matter how bad the odds looked. We brought those skills to the stars, and we're offering to share them with the Union, not as junior partners or second-class members, but as equals who have proven our worth. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then War Master Crixithal did something that shocked everyone present. The massive Crithax pressed one of his clawed hands to his chest in a gesture of respect that his species reserved for only the most worthy opponents. I was wrong about humans. You are not prey pretending to be predators. You are predators who are smart enough to sometimes act like prey, luring your enemies into traps they don't see until it's too late. The Crithax would be honored to fight alongside warriors of such capability. Councillor Thax bubbled in what might have been laughter or amazement. The Council will now vote on humanity's application for advanced membership status, with full military consultation rights and access to quantum displacement technology. The vote was unanimous. 47 species, some of whom had opposed humanity's application just weeks ago, all agreed that humans had more than earned their place at the table. As the vote was recorded, Ambassador Chen allowed herself a genuine smile. She caught Reeves's eye and nodded in acknowledgement. They'd done it. Not just survived the impossible mission, but exceeded it so thoroughly that the galaxy had no choice but to recognize humanity as equals. 6 months later, Sarah Reeves sat in a bar on Earth, her uniform jacket hanging on the back of her chair, a beer growing warm in her hand. Across from her, Lieutenant Jackson nursed his own drink, both of them enjoying the rare silence after months of debriefings, award ceremonies, and press conferences. I got the assignment notification, Jackson said quietly. They're forming a new unit, mixed species special operations teams, combining human tactics with alien capabilities. They want me to help train the first groups. You going to take it? Reeves asked. Yeah, someone has to teach these aliens how to fight dirty. He grinned. What about you? I heard you turned down a promotion to colonel. Reeves nodded, taking a sip of her beer. They offered me a desk job, coordinating humanity's military integration with the Union. Important work, essential even. But I'm not done in the field yet. There are other threats out there, other impossible missions that need doing. And now the galaxy knows when you have a problem that seems unsolvable. When you need someone who can adapt to anything and win against impossible odds. You call humans the galaxy's new problem solvers, Jackson mused. I like it, though I suspect we're going to get sent to every hellhole and death trap from here to the galactic rim. Probably, Reeves agreed. But that's what we're good at. Humans don't just survive impossible situations. We thrive in them. We turn them into opportunities. We take the worst the universe can throw at us, and we come back stronger. She raised her glass. To the 38 soldiers we lost in the Deadzone. They died proving that humanity deserves to stand among the stars. They won't be forgotten. To the fallen, Jackson echoed, and they drank in silence for a moment. Outside, the sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere up there, beyond Earth's atmosphere, beyond the solar system, beyond the comfortable borders of human space, the galaxy was waiting. Waiting with challenges and opportunities, with dangers and wonders, with 1,000 impossible problems that needed solving. And now the galaxy knew when you needed something impossible done, you sent humans. Because humans didn't ask if something was possible. They asked how to make it possible. They didn't accept limitations. They found ways around them. They didn't quit when things got hard. They got creative. The Crithax were stronger. The Trellix were faster. The Vharn were smarter in conventional terms. But humans were survivors, adapters, innovators. Humans were the species that looked at a death world and decided to build a civilization. The species that looked at the void of space and decided to explore it. The species that looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate a species from a death world. Never assume that strength or speed or technology was everything. And never, ever count out humans. Because when their backs were against the wall, when the odds were impossible, when everyone else had given up, that was when humans were at their most dangerous. Major Sarah Reeves finished her beer and stood, pulling on her jacket. She had a meeting with the Joint Chiefs in the morning about humanity's next mission for the Union. Somewhere out there, another impossible situation was waiting. Another threat that the galaxy's conventional forces couldn't handle. Another opportunity for humanity to show what we could do. She smiled. Bring it on, she thought. The universe had spent billions of years thinking it was tough. It was about to learn what tough really meant. It was about to face humans, and humans didn't lose. They just found new ways to win. The war for humanity's place in the galaxy was over. We'd won. Now it was time to show the galaxy what else humans could do. And the universe would never be the same. They called us weak. They called us soft. They called us prey, playing at being predators. The Crithax Dominion learned the truth. Humans aren't the strongest, fastest, or toughest species in the galaxy. But we're the most dangerous, because we never stop adapting, never stop fighting, and never accept that something is impossible. We're the species that conquered a death world and then decided that wasn't enough. We wanted the stars, and now we have them. And the galaxy is better for it, whether they realized it yet or not.